Okay, for recording purpose, we are uploading all the documents to AECT Atel. So in this record, all the video and audio recording. So that is why we are interruption to begin. So in this regard, I welcome our assistant professor U. Arumugam to propose welcome address to the today resource person, Company Secretary Balasubramaniam G. I am happy, sir. I handed over to Arumugam, U. Arumugam, please.
Thank you, Professor. A most respected resource person, Sri G. Balasubramaniam, is Company Secretary. Respected members of Corporate Secretaryship, faculty, learned faculty members, dear participants, very good afternoon, one and all. Today, our resource person is the alumnus of Corporate Secretaryship Department of Corporate Secretaryship Department, Allahabad University. Our resource person has two segments dominated. In first segment is industries, another one is education segment. I think in the field of education. He also holds the position of finance controller, international operations of a Roots group of companies. He also holds the position of manager, a Roots, a multi-clean limited, a branch in Sharjah, UAE. He has been instrumental in formation of companies in North America, Russia, and handles the compliance management of company in Malaysia, and joint venture formed in India with a Slovenian JV partner. He is a member, a Confederation of Indian Industries, CII, a Coimbatore Zone, the Economic Affairs and Taxation Panel since 2010 to 11. He was a co-convener, Economic Affairs and Taxation Panel, a Confederation of Indian Industry, a Coimbatore Zone in the year 2011 to 12 and 12 to 13. He is in an interview panel of a few top corporates. The Roots has presented 2 awards, one for excellence in profession and another for appreciation of his service. In academic segments, he has authored a booklet, titled Mutual Funds in India. He was the chairman of the Institute of Company Secretaries of India, Coimbatore chapter of the year 2010. He was awarded by His Excellency, the Governor of Uttar Pradesh, for having made Coimbatore chapters as the best chapter B grade during his tenure as chairman. He has served as treasurer 2007, secretary 2008, and vice chairman 2009 of ICSI and Coimbatore. He has been the management committee members of ICSI Coimbatore chapter continuously for a period of 12 years since 2007. He is a member of Board of Studies in various institutions, and he is a faculty at the Institute of Company Secretaries of India and the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India and Coimbatore branch. He is a visiting professor of various institutions such as TIPS, Global Institute, Coimbatore, adjunct faculty, KCTC Business Schools, a visiting faculty, Department of Management Studies, Ramakrishna Engineering College. He was a member of Board of Studies in various institutions. He has conducted various workshops for students, like how to appear for professional exams. a personality development, a career counseling, corporate quiz, creative thinking, business quiz, a company law quiz, a Coimbatore business quiz, a mock interviews, a mock board meetings, employment drill, etc. Besides having addressed at various business schools and more than 500 symposiums. He spoke on career as a company secretary, a broadcast by All India Radio Coimbatore. Our resource persons is interested in Carnatic vocal music, I think in the extra curriculum, and he is a trustee of Ashra Avinash Foundations, a registered charitable trust formed to render service to this society, presently publishing books on spirituality. I think it is a great pleasure. It is my great pleasure and privilege to introduce today's full resource persons, Sri G. Balasubramaniam, company secretary. FCS is a company secretary of Roots Multi Clean Limited, Coimbatore. May I request Sri G. Balasubramaniam to handle the session on legal and provisions of a corporate restructuring. Over to you, sir.
Respected Dr. Vedirajan, my beloved friend Dr. Morarji, Dr. Ganesh Murthy, and my dear beloved friends. This afternoon, I am going to take you through the legal and provisions of corporate restructuring. Being a faculty for close to 20 years, I know the difficulty of a faculty, particularly in an afternoon session, and that too on a legal subject. So I'm planning to ensure to have wake-up slides then and there, because in my view, any person who is listening to anything cannot continuously listen and apply his thought for more than 3 minutes. That is the problem that we see with students when we are teaching. Only for the first 3 minutes, the student's attention will be with us. After that, he will be physically sitting in the classroom, but his thoughts will be elsewhere. It is, as a faculty, you might have experienced a lot of challenges like this. And our duty is to ensure to bring him to the classroom at every given point of time and give him a lot of inputs. So taking the same challenge being an afternoon session, you will have some wake-up slides then and there. So you need to bear with me for that, please. When we look at the legal and provisions of corporate restructuring, let us understand what are the gamut of law that we are supposed to cover in this topic. Nothing less, nothing more. The Companies Act 2013 plays a wide role in this regard, followed by the National Company Law Tribunal rules, the Companies Compromise Arrangement Amalgamation rules, Income Tax Act, SEBI LODR, Indian Stamp Act, Competition Act. Let us ponder upon each of these topics for quite some time to understand what it has to do with our day's topic today. If you look at Companies Act Chapter 15, consisting of section 230 to 240, deals with this area of merger, amalgamation, compromises, etc. You need to take into account the National Company Law Tribunal that has come recently, wherein they have a lot of rules and regulations. The Companies Compromise Arrangement Amalgamation Rules 2006 gives a detailed procedure for carrying out a scheme or compromise arrangement, etc. in this regard. As far as Income Tax Act is concerned, you need to understand various aspects such as tax reliefs to the amalgamating company, to the amalgamated company, how to carry forward the losses, What are the exemption from capital gains that is available? When a scheme of merger or amalgamation is involved, what are the income tax aspects involved? If it is local amalgamation, it will be different. If it is an international amalgamation, again, it will be different. So again, Income Tax Act plays a major role in this regard. SEBI, LODR plays a major role. They deal with...
Sorry for the interruption, sir. We'll move next slide, sir.
Yeah.
Sir.
So all these aspects will be covered in this topic. So going deep into the Companies Act, that is section 230 to 240, chapter 15, as I was talking to you. So section 240 gives the power to compromise or make arrangement with creditors and members. So the wording, if you look at it, will be compromise or arrangement with creditors or members, or creditors and members. So the chances are there, you may have to make a compromise or arrangement either with creditor or with member, sometimes both with creditor as well as members. So an application has to be made to the tribunal. When I say tribunal, I am by default referring to the National Company Law Tribunal or NCLT. An application has to be made to the tribunal for convening of the meeting of the members of creditors. In that case, who are eligible to make an application? First, the company itself. That's the main point in a Companies Act. If you look at any proviso of the Companies Act, which says when there is something wrong that is happening to the company, who is entitled to make the application? First, it is the company itself through the board of directors. So the company has the right to make the application. Creditor or member can make it up. In case if it is a winding up, the liquidator can make the application. So if you look at what are the disclosures that is to be made to the tribunal by the applicant, they have to give all the material facts, including the latest financial position of the company, latest auditor's report, duly audited financial statement. That's the statement. That's the word we use there. Duly audited latest financial statements. If there are any legal pending proceedings, etc., it has to be given. And the corporate debt restructuring scheme, you need to have the consent by 3/4 of the majority of the secured creditors. Here I have a point for you, for the listeners to ponder upon. That is, secured creditors are there. I need to get the consent of 3/4 of the secured creditors. Now, the doubt which I am raising here for discussion at a later point is whether it is 3/4 in number or 3/4 of the value. Because there might be 100 secured creditors, but they might be holding very less outstanding. Whereas there might be 2 creditors whose outstanding is very huge. So am I supposed to take the value or the number? We still have a case law to discuss on this. As far as notice of the meeting is concerned, the notice should contain an explanatory statement disclosing all the details of the compromise, arrangement, etc. It should explain in detail all the aspects of the meeting.
Sir?
Yes, sir.
Please show the next slide, sir.
Yes, sir.
Not changed.
So, if you look at the next subsection, talks about how the notice can be provided. So, notice can be provided for voting either through postal ballot. Now it's all electronic voting, and we have to send the notice to the regulators. Regulators here refers to RBI, SEBI, Competition Commission of India. All these people, in case you are into insurance, it can be IRDA, etc. So the approval and sanction of the scheme will be done at a duly convened meeting. When I say duly convened meeting, it means that the notice has been given properly and everything has been adhered to in this regard. So the tribunal will be sanctioning the scheme to provide for certain matters. They will be talking about how to protect the rights of creditors, how to go about it, how a compromise or arrangement can be worked up. All these things will be talked over there. And the order of the tribunal has to be filed with the registrar within a period of 30 days time. Sometimes tribunal may dispense with calling of meeting of creditors. On what situation? In case they are able to give an affidavit. What kind of affidavit? At least 90% of the value of creditors. They should confirm that they are agreeing for this. In that case, the meeting of creditors may be dispensed with. If you are going by buyback method or some other thing, you need to comply with the provisions of the buyback stated in
Sir, sorry for interruption, sir.
Yes, sir, please.
Not changed the slide, sir. First slide is showing.
I mean, you mean to
Because
say,
your presentation is okay, but not move the slide.
yes, sir, I am talking on this slide. Is it?
Yes,
No, sir.
No, sir.
வந்து தெரிய மாட்டேங்குது சார் ஸ்லைடு.
ஒரே நிமிஷம்.
Slide தெரியுது, ஆனா next slide move ஆகல.
ஒரே செகண்ட்.
Yeah.
இப்போ clear ஆயிடுச்சு சார்.
Okay.
Right, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Is it okay now? Right.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So, if they are going by a buyback method, then they need to adhere to the provisions of section 68 which talk about buyback. Sometimes it can be a takeover method. In that case, all the provisions of that also has to be adhered to. So, these are all the general aspects I'm just discussing with you. 231 talks about the power of the tribunal to enforce compromise or arrangement. What is this? Well, tribunal has got absolute power in case the scheme is found to be approved, in case there is nothing wrong in the scheme or there is nothing which is not going to affect the interest of the people, then in all those cases, scheme will be approved by the tribunal. The tribunal will say how this can be implemented, in what method it can be done, on all those things, in case guidance is needed if tribunal feels so. Coming about to the merger and amalgamation of companies. So tribunal has got power to call the meeting of creditors in respect of merger or amalgamation. They need to circulate the documents for the members or creditors meeting. They need to put up all the documents like what is the proposed terms, the draft of that should be placed. Then we need to have various aspects like accounting statements, etc., which should substantiate all these things. Whereas coming to the sanctioning of scheme by tribunal will try to sanction the scheme after it is satisfying with all the provisions that everything has been complied with. So tribunal has got wide powers on this. We need to understand that. The point to note here is tribunal has got absolute power and it will work on anything and everything, and it will ensure that the scheme is implemented for the benefit of the members over there. The transferor company, what they have given, everything will be viewed by the tribunal in this case. In case there is going to be transfer of property or liabilities, then again that will also happen. The certified copy of the order has to be filed with the registrar. Normally, as usual, if you take anything, the filing with the registrar, the normal default time is 30 days. So what will be the effective date of the scheme? When are we going to start this? How are we going to start this? What will be the effective date? What will be the effective methodology? Everything has to be decided. And a statement by a chartered accountant, company secretary, or cost account to be filed with the registrar until the completion of the scheme, about the financial positions, all these things. Normally, the penalty provisions under the Companies Act are huge. Here it is, as usual, not less than 1 lakh, which may extend to 25 lakh rupees. The officer who is liable, again, they will be charged with again imprisonment, etc. So the penalty goes on and on. So, on discussing all these aspects, I am supposed to discuss about the merger or amalgamation of certain companies. What is this word, certain companies? Here, they are talking about 2 or more small companies. What is a small company? Again, coming to the definition. So, Companies Act 2, subsection 85 defines a small company, where the paid up share capital of the company does not exceed 50 lakh rupees or such higher amount as may be prescribed. Okay, agreed. Of course, it shall not exceed 10 crore rupees, because crossing 10 crore, you will have all the mandatory provisions to be complied with, like Example, appointment of managing director, lot of provisions that will be applicable once your this thing crosses 10 crores. Turnover, which as per its latest profit and loss account, does not exceed 2 crore rupees or such higher sum as may be prescribed, and it cannot exceed 200 crore rupees. So if it's crossing 200 crore rupees, then you can't call it as a small company. Why they have categorized this as certain company, small company, etc. The scheme is totally going to be different here, because there are a lot of exemptions that has been given to small companies under the Companies Act, like audit rotation is not mandatory. All these things are coming up over there. So if you could look at the scheme or amalgamation of certain companies is of utmost importance, because there could be a gamut of small companies over here. Let us go one by one. Let's go subsection one by one to understand the scheme completely. First, scheme of merger or amalgamation may be entered into between two or more small companies, holding company, wholly owned subsidiary company, etc. So when I say the term wholly owned subsidiary company, the entire shares are held by the holding company and not only 51%, which constitutes for the definition of holding company. Further, how will the scheme be there? How will be the scheme of merger or amalgamation be there? So the scheme will be inviting suggestions as to the people, how it can be done, what it can be done, etc. Once a scheme is there, then we need to file a copy of the scheme with the appropriate authorities. When I say appropriate authorities, by default, it includes central government, SEBI, official liquidator, in short, OL. Then, if you are covered with RBI regulations, RBI, IRDA, whatever it is, so it has to be filed with the appropriate authorities. Then the central government has to issue a confirmation order where there are no objections or suggestions from registrar or official liquidator. In that case, they are giving a no objection. Proceed. Objections, if any, then it has to be communicated to the government appropriately. Then the application by the central government has to be made to the tribunal in case they have any points to make upon. Then the tribunal's action on the central government's application is also to be taken on note. In case the registrar is having a point on this, then they will make an appropriate communication to the transferee company. Once the scheme is done with, then it comes into effect. So what are the effects of the scheme? The transfer of property, liabilities, the charges, if any, everything will be carried over. Legal proceedings from that company will be carried over to this company. All these things are the effects of the scheme. Subsection 10 talks about that the transferee company shall not on merger or amalgamation hold any shares in its name. What is this? When there are two companies, one is transferor, another one is transferee. The transferor transfers and the transferee receives it. So the transferee company on merger or amalgamation cannot hold any shares on its own name. A company cannot hold shares on its own name. Simple. Members only will hold it.
Sir, please move next slide, sir.
Yes, sir. So transferee company to file an application with the
No, sir. No, sir.
So
View வந்து அந்த subsection அந்த ஸ்லைடில் தான் இருக்கும்.
okay. I think we have moved to the next slide.
Yeah.
This is, as I told, is the wake up slide. Is it visible?
No, sir. No, visible, sir, but appropriate slide not visible. Your presenting slide is not visible.
Okay, I'll do one thing. Just a minute. I will just disconnect the presentation, then start.
No.
இருங்க அவரு சௌகரி
Are you able to see this section 233?
சார் இல்லைங்க சார், அந்த ஃபர்ஸ்ட் ஸ்லைடு அடுத்து ஒரு ஸ்லைடு தாங்க சார் இருக்குது. நீங்க பேசி பிரசன்டேஷனுக்கு ஏத்த மாதிரி ஸ்லைடு எங்களுக்கு விசிபிளா மூவ் ஆக மாட்டேங்குதுங்க சார்.
Right.
இப்போ 95% பீப்புள் ஒர்க் அந்த ஸ்லைடு வருது.
First slide.
அதுங்களா?
ஆமாங்க சார், இப்போ ஒரு பிக்சர் தெரியுதுங்க சார்.
Right.
95% ஆஃப்
இங்க இருந்து போலாங்களா அப்போ?
எஸ் சார், எஸ் சார், எஸ் சார்.
So as I said, this is a wake up slide. So
yes,
then there to tell to people that what leadership qualities are needed for people in life. So only 5% of the people who have the leadership qualities are ruling this world. So we'll ensure to take up the leadership qualities. Is the next slide visible now? Section 234.
No,
No
sir.
sir.
Something is wrong.
No, sir.
Just a second. Just a second. Just a second.
Just Alt tab. You just click on slide. Slide. Yes, sir. Now first slide.
One second. Just a minute. Just give me 2 minutes. Just a minute.
Yes sir, yes sir. Please take your own time.
Sir, otherwise, please send to me.
Yeah.
To
Your
me.
mail ID. Your mail ID, sir.
Yes, Ganeshamurthy. GAN.
Huh.
Just to see on the chat box.
Okay. One second. I will take it from there.
Please, please. Please.
You have typed in the chat box.
Sir, please wait.
Normally, we always have challenges. Whatever we do,
Yes, sir.
challenges are unavoidable.
Can you see, sir?
Yeah. One second.
Ganeshamurthy K at alagappauniversity.ac.in. You just send it to your PPT, sir. I will share.
Yeah, that will be better, I believe.
Yeah. Thank you, sir.
Sir, it is sent. You can start. Sorry, because what happened was when I started moving with the slides, I had no visualization of what is happening in the screen. So I didn't even look at the messages. I was just going with the flow of the PPT. Then I found that it has not changed. Sorry.
Sir, still not received.
Okay.
Still not received. One slide. Okay. Now received, sir. I will share you. Please continue.
Yes, sir. Please, please.
Yes.
So you can come to the slide number 8, sir, please.
Sir,
Yes,
sir,
sir.
now it's okay.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Perfect, sir.
Yes.
We'll go to the next slide, sir. Slide number 8.
ஸ்லைடுக்கு வந்துருங்க.
Slide number 8. Next one.
ஸ்லைட் நம்பர் 8ல இருக்காரு.
Okay. Right. You can give full screen view so that people can see. F5.
Okay, sir.
Fine.
Okay.
If you look at 234, this is talking about merger or amalgamation of a company with foreign company. So this is the area of specialization that I normally work at. How we can go with particularly amalgamation or merger with a foreign company. What are the rules and regulations that is involved in that part? Because here you need to comply with the Indian regulation. You need to comply vis-a-vis with the foreign country regulation. Normally, when you take a point, let us say there is an A company and there is a B company in India. When these two are trying to come for a restructuring, you will find that many things of these two companies are not matching. Sir, the slide is not visible to me, sir. Normally, even in India, if you are trying to go for a restructuring of two companies, that A company will be different, the B company will be different. When they both come together, there will be a lot of challenges. What kind of challenges? What is there in the object clause of this company is not there in that company. What is permitted in the memorandum of this company is not there in that company. There are cultural variations between the companies. Lot of points to ponder upon. Even inside a country, when there is a merger or amalgamation taking up, you have this kind of challenge. Imagine a situation where you are going for a restructuring with a foreign company. Sir, again, the same problem is there. I don't see the slide coming to the slide number 8. Something, always technology challenges us and says that we are wrong. Ganesh sir, can you please move to the slide number 8, please?
Sir,
Yes, sir.
it's
Yeah. Slide number 8, sir. Yeah, 10.
yeah,
7.
8.
Okay, sir. So, as far as merger with a foreign company is concerned, first you need to get RBI approval in this regard, and you need to ensure whether it is going to be an inbound merger or an outbound merger. You are supposed to comply with the regulations of the cross-border regulations, etc. Next challenge is valuation. who has to value the shares? Whether the person who is a registered valuer in India, whether he should value it, or whether the person who is a valuer in foreign country should value this. At this juncture, I will share with you one of the practical difficulty that is faced by us in FEMA. As far as US is concerned, audit is not mandatory. Audit is mandatory in US only for listed company and other big companies. Normally, for an unlisted company in US, audit is not mandatory. Whereas Reserve Bank says, no, when you are filing your annual performance report with us, that accounts should be duly audited by auditors. Whereas the host country says audit is not mandatory. Now, when I'm taking this accounts to my statutory auditor in India and asking him to audit, he says, I have not looked into that books of accounts. How can I give an audit certificate that everything is reflecting a true and fair view? I can't do that. So, when it comes to cross-border transaction, everything is a challenge in front of us. We need to get RBI approval. We need to explain them all these things. So, prior approval from RBI is one of the important things that you need to keep in mind, that when it comes to a cross-border merger, it has to be complied with. So the Foreign Exchange Management Cross-Border Merger Regulations 2018 issued by RBI plays a vital role in this regard. So in this case, you need to understand how the valuation has to be done. As I said, it could be an inbound merger, it could be an outbound merger, whatever the case is. The reporting requirement says that you need to report to the appropriate authority, as usual, central government, OL, RBI, IRDA, whoever is your regulatory, you need to comply with. You are supposed to file FCTRS form, FCTRS, Foreign Currency Transfer. That's the expansion for the acronym FCTRS. Then you need to file FCGPR form. That is, normally we say about the gross provisional return. That's why it is called as GPR, FCGPR. All these forms has to be filed. When I'm saying all these forms has to be filed, it looks very easy, but practically it will take long time to get the data to comply with all these things. And Reserve Bank will give you a time date of 30 days to 60 days time within which it has to be filed. Lot of complications are involved, and that's the challenge that we love to do it. So the approval has to be given in this case by the managing director, whole-time director, that all complaints are in order. That is the point in the case of deemed approval. Can we move to the next slide, please? Next, we are talking about section 235, where the power to acquire the shares of shareholders dissenting from scheme of contract. Sir, can you please move to the next slide, please? Ganesh sir, can you hear me?
Sir, now move, sir. Next slide.
Next. Section 235. Section 235. I think something is wrong.
It's okay.
No, sir.
No, sir.
Technology is not supporting.
Section 235.
The slide that starts with section 235.
Yes, sir. Now it's on the screen, sir.
No, sir. Section 234 is visible.
No.
Previous slide is visible.
Next slide. Next slide.
Oh, it's clear?
Yes, sir. 235.
Right.
Sir, is it okay, sir?
234 is only visible.
Oh,
Slide
So-
number 10, I think, sir. Slide number 10.
Again, you need to share the screen, sir. You stop it here and again you need to share the screen.
Next slide, sir. Yes, yes, correct, sir, correct, sir, correct, sir.
Perfect,
Now
sir.
it's okay, sir.
Yes, sir. So, when it comes to dissenting shareholders, what is this concept of dissenting shareholders? I think many are aware, but still, it's for me to throw some light upon what is meant by dissenting shareholders. See, whenever you bring up any scheme, whenever you bring up with any topic, some people will never agree to whatever you bring. Even in a home, it happens, right? When 4 people are there in a home, 3 people say we will go for a movie. The other one will say, no, we'll go for a walk. I'm not agreeing to whatever you say. So imagine the case with a company where you have lakhs and lakhs of shareholders, and you are trying to go for a merger or an amalgamation. You will always have dissenting shareholders. They will say that I am not agreeing with this scheme. So what will happen? If you are not agreeing, then you need to sell the shares and move away because you don't like what is happening in the company. Right? So how to purchase the shares from the dissenting shareholders? In case there are minority shareholders, there are very few shareholders, how to purchase their shares? Sometimes central government may go and do it in the case of public interest. Normally what we say, considering the necessity of the sovereignty or the integrity of India, considering the public interest involved therein, the central government is of an opinion that these companies may be amalgamated. So no, this kind of all these provisions, central government has got wide powers to do that. Then once your scheme is all done with, you need to register the same with the appropriate authorities. 239 preservation of books and papers of amalgamated company. Here I have a point to make upon. What is that? Normally, when Companies Act says that books of accounts has to be maintained for a period of 8 years, there is a lot of dispute and misunderstanding in this. Many people have a feel that anything in company, it is enough if you maintain only for 8 years, because it is said that everything has to be maintained for 8 years. I'm sorry, that's not the way to interpret that. Yeah, the definition says books of account includes vouchers, bill books, all those things. It is only for these documents the period of 8 years is applicable. For all other things, everything has to be permanently maintained by the company till the company is effectively wound up. If a director is appointed, you need to have the forms, TAR 14, whatever it is, earlier Form 32, 23, whatever it is. Because for a company, all these documents are perennial important documents. You cannot come and say, I lost the certificate of incorporation of the company. Right? It is enough if you maintain only for 8 years, right? I lost the certificate of incorporation. I don't have the original copy of memorandum and articles filed at the time the company was starting. I don't know who are the first directors of this company because everything is maintained only for 8 years. So I lost all those documents. No, that's not the way of interpretation. Books of account only to be maintained for a period of 8 years. Other than that, it is perennial document. Let us understand that in the proper way. Again, the definition I would like to emphasize when I'm talking to students, I'll be saying, look at the definition. It is not books of accounts. It is books of account. There is no yes there. So, preservation of books and papers, in my view, it has to be perennial. I will not restrict to a time of 8 years or 10 years. If you take the condition of Prevention of Money Laundering Act, that is the only act mentions a period of time of 10 years to maintain the books. Even that's not sufficient as far as other documents are concerned, as far as company is considering regarding the books on vouchers. It talks about only books and vouchers, books of account, only that can be maintained for 8 years. Other than that, every document has to be perennially maintained. What is the liability of officers prior to the merger? Whatever liability is committed prior to the merger, all those things are still to be carried over and carried upon, and it will be binding and will continue to bind even after such merger or amalgamation. That is the point to be understood there. Because sometimes you can have a case in the court saying that the court is not sanctioning the scheme. You know why? The promoters are trying to use the channel of merger or amalgamation to escape from the clutches and then get into a new boat where they can jump and get away. In that case, it's not allowed. The scheme will not be sanctioned by NCLT. Very, very clear that whatever offense is committed prior to merger or amalgamation, it is still continued and it will be binding on the officers. Can you please move to the next slide? So, approval of board of directors. Normally, approval of board of directors is obtained by way of board meeting. How? Here, board of directors of both the companies should be involved, both the transferor company as well as the transferee company. Both the companies has to come upon and then say that yes, these are things that we are planning to do. This is how we are planning to go about all these things. Approval of shareholders and creditors, you need to convene a duly convened meeting and then get everything done in this regard. So since we are talking about the legal aspects, I thought it would be worthwhile to talk about the various case laws involved here. The case law stories, where we'll be able to understand from that. So coming to the first one, the decision of Bombay High Court in Kaveri Entertainment. If the scheme is good and it has been considered as implementable by the shareholders, then even if court has got a better scheme, court will not interfere in the decision of the shareholders. That is the point that Kaveri Entertainment tells us. I will repeat. If a scheme has been selected by the shareholders and if they feel that that scheme is much good, we'll go ahead. In that case, they should, even if court feels we have got a better scheme, they cannot approve that. Shareholders' decision is final and binding on this. They cannot say that we will give you a choice of a different scheme. Why don't you take this scheme and then go ahead and then try something new? No, they can't say that. Shareholders has got absolute right to decide what is best for the company. Court cannot interfere in this kind of thing. Coming to the next, Hindustan Development Corporation. Subsidiary company has supplied certain materials to the holding company. I repeat, subsidiary company has supplied certain materials to holding company and the subsidiary company wanted them to be included in the list of secured creditors. Thus, you are part and parcel of the agreement or arrangement. How again you can yourself include yourself as a secured creditor there? It's not possible. So that's a point that we take up from Hindustan Development Corporation. I was talking to you some time back, probably at the initial of the session. Majority means what? Whether value or number. Wherever you look at the Companies Act, they will say requisite majority. They have not used any other word. They are using only the word requisite majority. A resolution with requisite majority may be passed. If I am going for a special resolution, wherein the creditors are there in a meeting, and I wanted a resolution to be passed, the question is whether the value of creditors are important or the number of creditors are important. Again, the scheme to be approved by special majority means what is majority? Is it number or value? No, it is both number and value. How is that? In case there are only 2 creditors who's holding 75% of the outstanding, can we devise something for them and there are 100 creditors left over there? What will be the decision? No, it has to be a combination of both. That's the catch here. The scheme has to be approved by special majority. Okay, what is the majority that we are taking up here in a decision? Present and voting. Sir, some people are not present, some people are absent. How will we take into account their voting? It is the word used is present and voting. They should be present and they should have voted. We are not worried about the people who are not present in the meeting. If the people who are not present, even they are holding some other major value, let us forget about it. You didn't come for the meeting, right? Who is present and voting alone, we will take it up. In case members don't approve a scheme, later on an affidavit is given to them. An affidavit paper is given to them, asking them to sign in this, saying that you are consenting to the scheme. In that case, an affidavit signed by the creditors is valid and binding. That's what we find in SM Holding Finance case. It is binding, provided they have signed an affidavit. In that case, it is much binding. What is the story to learn from Hindustan General Electric? In that case, what happened, I'll tell you. The holders of shares for the value of 6,42,700 were present. But only 4,42,700 voted in favor. The balance did not vote. It was not in favor. So the point here is, in case somebody has remained neutral, let us not take them into account. Some people, again, even in this case, earlier when it was postal ballot and other things, there are a lot of invalid votes. Thanks to NSDL, CDSL and all the mechanism of e-voting, today there cannot be even a single invalid vote. All the votes are only regular proper votes because it's on the e-voting. You can't have a concept of invalid votes. So Kirloskar Electric Company, in that case, the point is casting an invalid vote is no voting in the eyes of law. It is as good as you have not voted. Can we move to the next slide, please? So you need to get the approval of stock exchange as far as SEBI LODR is concerned. If you are a listed entity, then you need to file appropriate papers and then get it approved. Approval of financial institution. You need to get approval from your bank where you have already taken a loan, etc. You need to get a no objection, consent, etc. In case you are a registered office, the factory, etc. are situated on any leasehold land, then again you need to get the approval from the people for a no objection. Approval of tribunal, very much essential. The point here is, Imagine there are two companies that are coming up for merger. Say one situated in Maharashtra, another situated in Tamil Nadu. I need to get the approval of NCLT of both the benches, both Maharashtra as well as Tamil Nadu. Normally we call as Chennai and Mumbai. I cannot say that I have got the approval of the tribunal of Mumbai or Chennai and I can proceed. Not at all. You need to get the approval of both the tribunals. In case it is going to be a scheme sanctioned between the non-resident Indians, etc., where involvement of foreign currency is there, automatically FEMA comes inside. Then you need to get the approval of RBI also. Saying approval of RBI is very easy, but practically I have faced a lot of challenges when it comes to international merger, etc. I'll just share with you one small point of practical difficulty, what I faced. In India, you have the concept of share certificate, all those things. When we started a company in Iran, of course, we have moved out of Iran now because there's a US sanction. We don't have Iran operations right now. What I'm talking is the experience that I had in 2005 with Iran. Iran doesn't have the concept of share certificate. They don't issue share certificates to shareholders in that country. Then the bank entry that is made in the books of the company as well as the shareholder accounts for the shares that is to be held. So that is a proof, that is evidence. I cannot explain the difficulty that I faced in convincing our RBI on this. How come they can say that no to share certificate? You should have got a share certificate. When I asked my foreign counterpart about share certificate, he said, if you want, you can print one. When I say, well, whether that will be duly authenticated by any of the authorities in your country? No, we don't have that concept. If you want, you can print. Then it is as good as printing a marriage invitation. I did not get approval from anybody except proof checking. Everything should be over. So, approval of Reserve Bank, though it is a single word, looks to be very easy. It's very, very, very challenging because I need to comply with the law of India. I need to comply with the law of the host country. When you are going for a subject that is related with retail market, then the approval of Competition Commission of India is also involved there. Please go to the next slide, sir. Again, a wake-up slide for people. The slide itself talks about it, so there may not be any explanation for this. Can we move to the next one? Yeah, please. So this flow chart will tell you how the process of merger and amalgamation is happening. The first and foremost point is whether your memorandum has provision on this. Memorandum has got name clause, subject clause, situation clause, liability clause, capital clause, over. Whether memorandum should have provision for this is the question. The point is, the object clause of both the companies has to be sometimes reading parallel. Even though if they are not reading parallel, nothing stops them from amalgamating. Let us try to understand this first. Even if the memorandum object clause of transferor company and transferee company are talking or parting ways apart, nothing stops them from amalgamating. Another question, whether the object clause should have provision for merger, amalgamation, etc. I'm sorry. When I floated a company somewhere in 1980, even in 60, I did not think that in a later year that my company may get merged or amalgamated into any other entity. So my object clause may or may not say anything about it. If that is the case, should I amend the memorandum and then bring all those clauses? Only after that will I can go for an approval? Not necessary. The point is, the right to merger amalgamation is the right of the company and it is not the object of the company. This is a very big important case law that we find in the final examinations of company secretary exam. What is that? Whether the right to amalgamate should be there in the object clause, not necessary. The right to amalgamate is the right of the company and it is not object of the company. The company, when the starting itself, I don't have an object of I'll be going to amalgamate, I'll be going to merge. No, I don't have any idea. But my company was started way back in 1960s or 80s. How will that have that all those provisions? I cannot do anything which is beyond memorandum. It is ultra vires, agreed. But to what extent is my memorandum live up to date is again a very big question mark. In 1990s, probably late 90s, when we started to go for windmills as a result of tax planning for our organization, the memorandum is not talking anything about it. How will I know when I'm sitting and drafting a memorandum today, what technology will be coming up into this world 20 years or 30 years down the line? I'm not sure about it. I can only have one word in an umbrella clause saying that the company may enter into any tax saving methodology as it may deem fit for the benefit of the company. That's it. There will be only that kind of an umbrella clause. I cannot put something that is going to come after 30 years. I cannot visualize sitting now. So a company which has been started in 1960 may not have a visualization of the windmills coming up in the 1990s. I can't. So there are certain things which memorandum will not provide. You are supposed to go by the umbrella clause and then execute it. So in case you need that the object clause need to be amended for various purposes, then you can go ahead. Then you should convene a preliminary board meeting. What is this preliminary board meeting? The board first should approve that we are going for this kind of merger or amalgamation. We will be taking it forward. All these things should be mentioned in the preliminary meeting. Then they should go for a valuation report, prepare the scheme of the amalgamation, and only then this can be taken forward. Can you please move to the next slide, sir? So in this meeting, that's a subsequent meeting, you need to approve the scheme, the valuation report, etc. You need to keep the stock exchanges informed well ahead, and then outcome of the meeting also should be informed to the stock exchanges. Then application made to be to the tribunal seeking how we are going to go for a meeting of the members, creditors, etc. Am I audible?
Sir, yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Obtain the tribunal's order and then go ahead on this. Wherever you are, ensure that normally all filing with ROC should be happening within 30 days. That's a default provision. For certain exceptional thing, you have 60 days, etc. Even in that case, in order to safeguard yourself, blindly believe saying that 30 days is the time limit. So file this with the ROC, then make the effect of transfer of assets, etc. When there are shares to be allotted to the shareholders, it's to be done. Then the listing has to be done. Post-merger integration, a lot of problems are involved in this. How's that? Sir, I'm just colloquially sharing something with you. Please don't mistake me. When a newly married girl goes to a house of her husband, everything is a problem there. We don't cut vegetables in this style in this home. We cut it in a different manner. We don't cook in this style. We cook in a different manner. Whatever is being done, the other party says, no, here the procedure is entirely different. Imagine when there is a merger or amalgamation between two companies and when all these employees are trying to be allocated. No, in that company, we don't do like that. Then this guy will say, in this company, we don't do like this. Finally, there's a tug of war. Post-merger integration of accounts, if you are with the SAP systems, again, that's a very big challenge. So post-merger integration is something which will take lot of time to settle down. There are a lot of turbulence areas in that. It's not that easy. By the time everything settles down, please don't mistake me for saying this. I have seen, practically I have seen, the top man in either of the organization puts the paper and then walks out. Post-merger integration, they are not able to tolerate what is coming to them. A company had a managing director, B company had a managing director. On amalgamation or merger, now who will be the managing director? One person doesn't have an experience of obeying to somebody. He has been always used to giving order. Now, how is that he will obey to somebody else? It's very difficult. So, post-merger integration, there are a lot of challenges, I'll tell you. Whether it is systems or whether it is people, lot and lot. So, there are challenges which has to be faced in all these cases. Can we please move to the next slide? What is the process involved? So, memorandum to authorize amalgamation. It should not be beyond the powers. It should not be ultra vires. So, observing the transferee company's memorandum is again an important aspect. You need to convene a board meeting, get the valuation report done. The scheme should provide for all these aspects. What are the contents that the scheme should provide for? It's a very big list. So I'll just try to add value to that by explaining it in a different manner. So what are the details of the transfer and transferee company? What are the details of transferor and transferee company? What is the appointed date in which it will happen? How the transfer of assets and liabilities will happen? What is the effective date of the scheme? What will be the consequences of the scheme coming into effect? Is there a difference between appointed date and an effective date? What is the share capital details of the transferor company and the transferee company? What is the proposed share exchange ratio? What are the conditions regarding payment of dividend, etc.? What will be the status of employees of the various schemes that you have floated? What will be the impact of the income tax dues outstanding? Contingent liabilities. Everywhere there is a clause. ABC Limited, unless repugnant to the context, includes successors, assigns, legal heirs. This word should be there in all agreements. If that word is not there in the agreement, then it is very difficult to tell how we are going to implement this. The successor company details, if it is not automatically captured by this kind of entry in all the agreements that is entered, it's very difficult. Tomorrow, if A company comes or B company comes, then it's very difficult. So, this legal words that we put in agreements are very, very, very important. Sometimes people may look at why are these things are unnecessarily being drafted. No. That's not the way to look at it. Then the statement of expense. In case there are qualifications attached to the scheme, again that has to be given. What will be the surrender of shares and the ratio in which new certificates will be issued? All these things takes considerable amount of time and involves activity by professionals like chartered accountants, company secretaries, etc. So the scheme, preparation of the scheme of amalgamation or merger is not that easy. It should be approved by both the parties. What will happen to the employees, systems, contingent liability, everything should be given over there. Normally, when we start an organization, we tell it's better now itself to tell clearly what will be the exit route. Pardon me if I'm going to share something which is going to disturb you. In all the international contracts I have seen, the exit route is missing. Sentimentally, they have not given this exit route. After understanding everything, that's a very big gap. Either of the party is not agreeing, and what you have is a stalemate, deadlock. How to overcome this deadlock? See, party A is in India, party B is in Germany. Party A stopped talking with party B. How to resolve this deadlock? How to resolve this deadlock? Not at all possible. Better put it in the agreement. Sometimes, even though you feel that is negative, don't worry about it. Go ahead, put it in the agreement. As far as international scenario is concerned, the arbitration is another problem. When I say the arbitration can happen in India, the other party say no, it will happen in my country. Then we go for a neutral venue. As far as Asia is concerned, Singapore has got a bench which we can rely upon and then go for arbitration. When I am in India and the other party in US, by default I am going to select only Geneva as a seat of arbitration, being a neutral place. If it is going to be a party with Europe and India, then I can select some other country. Even in arbitration, the parties don't settle. What I am trying to say is, when you are preparing a scheme of amalgamation or merger, please include a clause saying that in case of any other item which has not been listed out, it may be mutually discussed and concluded by the parties by an amicable discussion. Here, everything after a particular time becomes a problem. Similarly, it's just like a typical Indian marriage. The bride and bridegroom are interested in the marriage, but the parents of both the sides are fighting like anything for each and every petty issues. No, they didn't respect me. This is the respect that they are showing to us. I am not interested in this. I think we have been cheated. This is the way the parents are talking. The same case is happening with bigger corporates. After drafting everything, there's a deadlock. Parties don't talk to each other. A lot of challenges are there as far as international mergers and amalgamation is concerned. Approval of the scheme. How to approve the scheme? Hold a board meeting. This includes for both the transferor and transferee company. As usual, give notice to ROC, stock exchange, whatever it is, and then get the things approved. Can we move to the next slide, please? Wake up slide. Next. Application to tribunal seeking direction to hold meeting. I am giving an application to tribunal asking how can I hold the meeting? What is the method of meeting? How to do it? Again, jurisdiction of tribunal. As I said, one person is in Maharashtra, the other person is in Tamil Nadu. How to get the approval of both NCLTs? Sometimes the company may not be the applicant, and the applicant could be liquidator or somebody else. In that case, caution has to be taken in this case. How to obtain the order of the tribunal for holding meetings? Make an application to them. What are the points that you are listing? What is the quorum? What is the procedure? How the chairman of the meeting will be appointed? Everything. Again, notice by advertisement. Advertisement means default provision. Advertisement has to be given in one English paper and another regional language paper having the most circulation in the region. What is most circulation? Let us not get into that dispute. One paper says that I have got the maximum circulation, other paper says that I have got the maximum circulation. Let us not get into that dispute. As far as our point is concerned, that should be circulated majority in that district or region. Then we will go ahead with this. Information as to merger or amalgamation. What kind of activity is going to take place, that has to be given over there. Holding the meeting as per tribunal's direction. Tribunal says how meeting has to be there. It has to be conducted only as per tribunal's direction. General meeting, normally I used to say to students, whenever you write in your answer sheet, please don't write AGM everywhere. It may be an EGM also. So always use the term in the general meeting of shareholders. Don't write the word in the annual general meeting. That's a default word which I find in answer sheets of students. It is a general meeting. It could be an AGM or it could be an EGM. So convene a general meeting. The reporting of results will be done in CAA4. That's the form in which they are giving the results. How many creditors were there? How many members were there? How did the voting happen? What was the individual values? How did they have voted on this? Everything has to be given there in black and white. Again, confirmation of the scheme has to be obtained. Then you need to get the court order on that. As usual, file orders with ROC, etc. What are the conditions precedent and subsequent to tribunal's order sanctioning scheme of arrangement? There may be certain conditions, but it has to be ensured that the memorandum provides way for it. That's it, nothing more than that. Can we move to the next slide, please? Here, I have an idea to discuss with you the various case law stories from which we can have an understanding about the schemes and other things that has been sanctioned by the S12 High Courts, Company Law Board, and now NCLT. What are the broad principles evolved by courts in sanctioning a scheme? Whether there is lack of good faith by both the parties, whether the intention is good, whether the scheme is being floated to evade the law, it is all has to be looked at. Once everything is meeting these requirements, then the courts or NCLT will sanction the scheme. They will see that nothing fishy is found here. Then we will go ahead. The first one, Mafatlal Industries case. Whether all the requisite statutory approvals have been approved and got for the scheme. If yes, proceed. Let us not hold it back. If all the approvals is obtained, if all statutory approvals are met with, let us not hold it back. Let the scheme go ahead. Let us not worry about all these things. Again, I repeat, there need not be common objects clause between the transferor company and transferee company. Companies having entirely different business can amalgamate or merge. That's the learning that we got from PMP Auto. Okay. If you come to the case of Mahavir Waves, as a result of the merger or amalgamation, my share capital will increase. Whereas my memorandum is silent about it or does not cater to this. So how to go about it? Okay, I'll tell you how this is. What is the wordings in the memorandum in the capital clause? The authorized share capital of the company is 50 lakh shares of rupees 10 each. So that will make 5 crore rupees. which can be divided, subdivided, consolidated, as may be desired from the company, as may be decided by the company from time to time. So if I'm not having the clause, it can be divided, subdivided, consolidated, amended, then again it's a problem. But some company do it in a very different manner. How? They say only this words. Authorized share capital of the company is 50 lakh shares of ₹10 each. That's it. But the articles, they have a provision saying that the company's capital can be altered, amended from time to time. In that case, they can go ahead with that. Okay. Next, the company court can sanction a scheme even if order of winding up has been initiated. Even if order of winding up has been initiated, the company can still go for a scheme. Where there is an provision for organizing of capital, the company can decide and then take it forward. No separate compliance is necessary. Post amalgamation, the share capital has to be decided accordingly. So, what will happen if there is a change in the name, and should the application for change of name should be given separately? No, court has already sanctioned the scheme. Let me go with that. No. As far as your company is concerned, though court has sanctioned it, you have to separately apply for a name change. It cannot be taken that court has sanctioned, I will go ahead with this. No, it can't happen. Again, the next question is whether I should inform income tax department about the scheme, whether I need to get approval from income tax department. Not necessarily. As long as when the scheme is being sanctioned, when there is no aspect of income tax evasion, when there is nothing fishy on that part, no prior approval of income tax department is needed. Whatever compromise arrangements that you are entering into, it should be within the powers of the company, and there cannot be any ultra vires aspect. Can a company which is financially unsound can amalgamate with another company which is financially sound? The purpose itself is I want to come out of my financial position, which is not good. So in that case, a not so good financial position company can very well merge with a good company. There are no restrictions on this. A company which is incorporated, hardly 15 days. It doesn't have any assets, it doesn't have any liability. In that case, whether this company can merge or amalgamate with any other company, very much it can do. That's the result that we got from APCO Industries case. Sometimes there are restrictions for Section 8 company or the S12 Section 25 company that they are supposed to go ahead only with company of the same nature. But in certain exception cases, court may even give an exemption saying that no, for this purpose, you may go ahead and then do this. Again, repeating, it is court has no power to stop the scheme which has been already sanctioned by the shareholders. They cannot interpret that this will be prejudicial to the interest of anybody, provided shareholders have approved it. So shareholders have a very big edge on this. Can you go to the next slide? Hard decisions in life sometimes happens. Next. The scheme of arrangement or settlement, everybody can interpret in a different manner. So how you interpret that is a matter to be decided. When I have got a written consent of all the members, and secured creditors, then I can go ahead with the scheme, whatever I have taken up. When majority of the shareholders with their open eyes has given an approval, nobody can stop the scheme. Even court can't do that. Whatever be the procedure for issue of shares, etc., that it has to be decided by the company accordingly. So these case laws help us to understand things in a much better manner as to how things can be. And everywhere we come to know that the shareholders are given more powers and they are entitled to take decision on this. So can you please move? Because next slide, please. A scheme was proposed only with a view to dispose of the assets and to relieve the promoters and ex-directors. The court refused to sanction. No, we can't sanction this. The ultimate purpose itself is not good. We can't sanction such a scheme. You have to be liable, you have to be responsible. Court cannot do that kind of a thing. So all these things take a lot of ideas to give us how court will decide on a particular thing. Since we are just running out of time, I'll just go to the next slide. Please permit me. We'll move to the next one, please. Next. Landmark judgment, infrastructure leasing and financial services, ILFS versus BPL. I'll tell you what's the story here. ILFS has given loan to BPL. BPL has filed charge form 8. So the charge is being held, filed with the ROC. Later on, ILFS had a arbitration settlement with BPL. Later on, when BPL went for a amalgamation merger with a joint venture company, ILFS said, we don't agree to the scheme. Why? We are an unsecured creditor. How you are an unsecured creditor? No, after the arbitration, the form 8 that was filed, now that's of no use, and we are an unsecured creditor now. We are no more a secured creditor, and we can't give our approval for the scheme. Let the scheme be held. They did not permit the scheme. ILFS gave such a kind of a petition. Even the divisional bench said that what ILFS is saying is correct. Finally, Supreme Court intervened and then saying that, no, this is not right. The moment you are given a loan and you are a secured creditor, since Form 8 is already filed, the arbitration proceeding does not relieve you from the secured creditor, and you are also a secured creditor of the company. What are the various forms to be filed? So you need to bring up a new memorandum articles. You need to file forms for the author share capital increase. A special resolution has to be passed, and then you need to file form for all those things. You need to comply with the stock exchange requirements on all these aspects and then get the things done. You need to file Form INC 28 along with certificate copy of the tribunal's order. So a lot of forms and procedures. What are the changes to the regime of merger and amalgamation under the Companies Act? So a notice of admission in Form NCLT 2 has to be made, affidavit in NCLT 6, copy of scheme of arrangement or merger, and you need to pay the necessary fees. How I can send notice? Notice can be hard copy, notice can be sent by email. Can I dispense with the meeting? Can I say that the meeting need not be held? Yes. How? Provided I get the consent in writing or in some other form. What is the some other form? I told you earlier itself, by getting an affidavit signed by the creditors, right? By getting an affidavit. The manner of voting can be electronic voting. Everywhere, please ensure that you keep informed the statutory authorities, RBI, IRDA, Competition Commission, Whatever is your authority, you need to inform. Again, time limit within which it is to be filed, 30 days. File it within 30 days to the ROC. Please, can we go to the next one? What are the changes under the Companies Act 2013 as far as merger and amalgamation is concerned? What are the changes that is to be noted? Sometimes shareholders meeting may be done with, dispensed with. Why? I have got the consent of the majority of the people, then I can go. I need to send notification to multiple regulatory authorities, IRDA, RBI, CCI, whatever it is. I can get the approval through postal ballot. Now it is electronic voting. I have to mandatorily enclose the valuation report. I need to ensure that the accounting standards are complied with for both the entities. Merger of a listed entity into an unlisted entity, it's possible. Doesn't mean that you should again convert this into an unlisted entity or convert that into a listed entity, and then only you can make. Merger or amalgamation of company with foreign company under 234. That's where my major exposure in life lies with. Cross-border mergers, international mergers. Penalties have been made more severe under the Companies Act. Again, if it is a small company, as I have defined earlier, the fast-track merger can be applied. Of course, for compromise arrangement, I need to adhere to the buyback rules and everything. I need to adhere to the SEBI regulations as far as takeover offer is concerned. Objections can be made by shareholders holding a minimum of 10% of the holding, or creditors having an outstanding debt amounting to 5% or more. So even these minority people can make an objection. Finally, the order from the tribunal is my Bible, and I am supposed to go by this. The only drawback what I see with my today's topic is it's more practical oriented. It's more of a filing of forms, getting things done, a drafting of the scheme, amalgamation, etc. So it's not like any other procedure in Companies Act wherein I can throw light upon and then saying that it's all like this only. So my session today, I was just sharing my experience of what I have handled with the cross-border mergers and other etc., including the Indian activity. However, all these things are procedural aspects and it has to be understood only by way of case law, and then the various decisions that has come up from time to time in this regard. So I think I have made my best to reach the audience. I'll be able to take up questions if any, because I wanted to ensure that I close in time, except for the 5 minutes disturbance that has happened during the session. Sir, you need to press one more arrow key. So it is basically complete theory and the legal aspects. So the challenges are more everywhere. It has to be ensured and complied with. So we have covered all the gamut of law, Companies Act, SEBI, LODR.
Yes,
all
sir.
these
Yes, sir.
things.
Yeah. Well, sir, very nice presentation. Company Secretary Balasubramanian, sir. I am Professor Vedirajan.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
We have met on some other platform.
Yeah. Sir. Welcome, sir. The portal of Department of Corporate Secretary, Salawapur University. But this is very thick issues for legal provisions of the
Right.
corporate sector.
Normally, this will be a very boring session for students,
Yeah.
sir. Students will find it very difficult.
You have to completed process. Then one more case, documentation.
Yes.
Yeah. Then another some other time period, sir, I will invite you for the documentation of merger and amalgamation.
Yeah, sure.
So, but basically, I have a small queries and doubts
Please,
for
please.
your presentation.
Please.
You said for compromise arrangements of amalgamation for people are interpreting in different way.
Correct.
But this is for legal provisions of the company. They said the rule 3 of compromise arrangements of amalgamations, the company's rule to 2016.
Yeah. Rule 3 to 29.
Yeah. But the rules of 2016.
Correct, sir.
So we have the legal provisions. Either maybe creditors and members, any other class members. Or it may be to move to for the judiciary, NCLT, or maybe to file the affidavit.
Correct.
In the case of transferor and transferee company transaction, so that is restructuring are taking place.
Right, sir.
So the transferee company and transferor company, when come together, we have consolidation is come for corporate restructuring cases.
Right.
But how this compromise and arrangements taking place under rules, sir? But different people are interpreted in different ways. Suppose I am the transfer company, you are the transferring company, but I have settlement.
Correct.
Now, what is your point is how to, sir?
No, what people do practically is after the amalgamation or merger is over, from there they try to go forward and then settle the aspects. First, they wanted to go on board. That's the first point they are looking at. Let us go on board. Then we will settle everything. That's how it is practically happening. They don't settle anything prior to that because they feel that may take time and then may stop this process. They are worried about that part.
Whether they require for, what is say, application to the some other way to settlement?
No, they can do it by way of a step-by-step procedure and a mutual understanding among themselves.
Or you have to conduct a meeting.
Yeah. Get the approvals.
Yeah. Therefore,
Yes.
because therefore we are looking to this for select the right person, company secretary.
Right.
Mr. Pala Subramanian for this legal provisions of corporate restructuring.
Okay.
In that scenario, inviting you, sir.
Fine.
Let us, the audience, participants on the screen. So you have to, clarify your own doubts. Many of them,
Can I please go to the next slide, sir?
no issue. Okay.
We'll keep that and then take the questions.
Yeah.
I'll be happy to handle questions if any, please. Particularly international merger and amalgamations. That's my specialization, so I like to handle more on that.
Yeah. In detail, you explain. I'm very happy to.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, saw your slide is excellent mode. Participants, please.
Sir, good evening, sir.
Yes, sir, please, sir.
Yes, sir. I sincere thanks to you for fortunate today as a resource person. We are very happy and benefited all the faculty members and participants also. I record a sincere thanks to you, kind enough to accept our invitation, department invitation, and present here through Google Meet. And I want to general questions, sir.
Please.
Because it is a very basic, this legal and provisions of corporate restructuring strategy is very important at the initial stage for implementing any restructuring of companies.
Right.
So without knowing legal and provisions, we cannot do it at the moment of from company secretary.
Right.
What is your opinion about many companies then and there very frequently changed their structure or what way of various corporate restructuring strategies. It is, what is your opinion? General question, sir. For example, today Maruti Suzuki allies with Toyota for making new car produced, that is product name is Glanza. So what is the aim of they are doing, the companies doing such type of strategies?
Sir, there is a business secret involved in this. Right? You are my competitor. I don't know what will be your next move in the industry. So in order to kill that competition, I'm having a joint venture with you. In that case, I will be having access to your factory, etc. Then I will also understand all your R&D, etc. Because as a JV partner, you need to give me access to everything. Whether we are going to survive with this JV or not is a very big question, because records say that joint ventures in India have not lasted for more than 10 years. Best example is Hero Honda.
Hero,
Now,
yes.
they have parted ways apart.
Yes,
Why?
sir.
I have taken your technology, you have taken my technology. I can survive individually. Let us not have any joint venture. This is just a business competition strategy wherein people are going for this kind of a thing. So I doubt really how this will happen.
Okay, thanks, sir. As one of the participant raising and
Let's wait to hear from you. Let's wait.
Sir, I want to ask one basic question, sir, company secretary, sir.
Yes, sir, please, sir.
In case of the individuals, if any individual commits a bankruptcy fraud, then definitely he will be prevented from going abroad. His passport will be hijacked.
Correct.
Or his passport will be retained.
Right.
In the same way, whether SEBI has got the power of delisting the company in case of non-compliance of these formalities.
They can only issue notice, they can only issue warning.
Oh.
Automatically, you can't do that because public money is involved. See, just like that. See, sir, RBI has given license to banks. If the bank is committing the fraud, RBI cannot cancel the license and then say that tomorrow we are winding up the bank. Crores and crores of money is there by public. Crores and crores of people have put their money in that. RBI cannot all of a sudden say that we are winding up the bank. That will create panic in the country. RBI can only specifically go and punish that individual officer.
No, sir, SEBI, the same.
Yeah, similarly,
SEBI also.
Similarly, SEBI.
Oh, fine.
SEBI cannot immediately do like that. So normally there is a saying, law.
And one more question, sir. One more small question. The promoters and the directors, they don't have adequate knowledge about the legal provisions.
Agreed.
What about the penalty provisions on the part of professionals if they misguide?
No, if they misguide, then the liability will have to squarely come to the professional. That's the purpose of the professional being that they are supposed to educate them. Ignorance of law is not an excuse.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Sir. Yes. I think somebody has raised a hand.
Thank you, sir. The post-lunch session is really amazing and interesting. The sir has to cover the legal provisions of a corporate restructuring and a lot of case studies. The case laws are explained clearly, sir. Thank you, sir. And may I request Ms. E. Sanghavi to propose the formal vote of thanks.
A pleasant evening to one and all. Most respected company secretary, P. Balasubramaniam, sir. It's an immense pleasure for us to participate in this FTP program, and we learn more on legal and the procedures of corporate restructuring in today's session. Post-lunch session is very difficult for the listeners and also for the faculties to handle. But you made the session very interesting, sir. It was clear and crisp expression about the session 234 to 240. Mostly law-relating subjects will be boring to hear, but you took us in easy way to understand the legal aspects. Thank you, sir, for your effort taking to teach us clearly regarding the topic, the legal and provisions of corporate restructuring. Hope this session will be useful for present faculty and research scholars to publish articles in reputed journals. Once again, thank you, sir. Thank you, one and all. We will meet you all tomorrow morning by 10 a.m. at the same meet.
Thanks for the opportunity. Thank you. We'll catch up soon.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Please leave the call.
We thank Ganesh Murthy for arranging this company secretary. Thank you, sir. Really, thank you.
Thank you, sir. And the support of our department, they are arranged.